Hello students, welcome to the lecture on assessment of training needs. And after the lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Explain the concepts of training needs assessment. Describe the purposes and levels of training needs assessment. Understand the applicability of training. Explain the scope of training. Describe the process of conducting needs assessment. Let's start with a brief introduction to assessment of training needs. Effective training or development needs on knowing what is required for the individual, the department, and the organization as a whole. With limited budgets and the need for cost-effective solutions, all organizations need to ensure that the resources invested in training are targeted at areas where training and development is needed and a positive return on the investment is guaranteed. Overview of training and development. The first step in designing a training and development program is to conduct a needs assessment. The assessment begins with a need, which can be identified in several ways, but is generally described as a gap between what is currently in place and what is needed now and in the future. Gaps can include discrepancies, differences between what the organization expects to happen and what actually happens. Current and desired job performance. Existing and desired competencies and skills. Let's discuss the training needs assessment. Objectives. By the end of the initial training, participants will be able to undertake a situation analysis for identified courses, develop a strategy for training needs analysis, TNA, for these courses, carry out a TNA for specific courses, use the results of the TNA for curriculum development. Teaching and learning process. The training will be based on a participatory experiential training approach, requiring participants to develop materials and plan the TNA. The final phase in the training and development program is evaluation of the program to determine whether the training objectives were met. Needs assessment. There are three kinds of needs assessment: organizational analysis, task analysis, and individual analysis. Organizational analysis looks at the effectiveness of the organization and determines where training is needed and under what conditions it will be conducted. The organizational analysis should identify environmental impacts, new laws such as ADA, FMLA, OSHA, etc., state of the economy and the impact on operating costs, changing workforce demographics and the need to address cultural and language barriers, changing technology and automation, increasing global world marketplaces, political trends such as sexual harassment and workplace violence. There are a variety of sources for collecting data for a task analysis. Job description. A narrative statement of the major activities involved in performing the job and the conditions under which these activities are performed. If an accurate job description is not available or is out of date, one should be prepared using job analysis techniques. KSA analysis. A more detailed list of specified tasks for each job including knowledge, skills, attitudes, and abilities required of incumbents. Individual analysis analyzes how well the individual employee is doing the job and determines which employees need training and what kind. Sources of information available for an individual analysis include performance evaluation, identifies weaknesses and areas of improvement, performance problems, productivity, absenteeism or tardiness, accidents, grievances, waste, product quality, downtime, repairs, equipment utilization, customer complaints. Observation. Observe both behavior and the results of the behavior. Work samples. Observe products generated. Interviews. Talk to manager, supervisor, and employee. Ask employee about what he/she believes he/she needs to learn. Questionnaires. Written form of the interview, tests, must measure job-related qualities such as job knowledge and skills. Attitude surveys. Measure morale, motivation, satisfaction. Checklists or training progress charts. Up-to-date listing of current skills. The purpose of a training needs assessment is to identify performance requirements and the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed by an agency's workforce to achieve the requirements. Determine agency benefits of needs assessment. This part of the process will sell and help the decision makers and stakeholders understand the concept of the needs assessment. Needs assessment based on the alignment of critical behaviors with a clear agency mission will account for critical occupational and performance requirements to help agency eliminate redundant training efforts, substantially reduce the unnecessary expenditure of training dollars, and assist managers in identifying performance requirements that can best be satisfied by training and other developmental strategies. Conduct needs assessment. Obtain needs assessment data. Example, review strategic plans, assess HR metrics, review job descriptions, conduct surveys, review performance appraisals. Analyze data. Define performance problems, issues, occupational group, individuals. Describe critical behaviors needed to affect problems, issues. Determine and clarify why critical behaviors do not currently exist. Research integrated performance solutions. Let's now move on to the levels of training needs analysis. Planning and evaluation are key elements in the effective delivery of training that will satisfy business or operational needs within an organization. Organizational level. Training needs analysis at organizational level focuses on strategic planning, business need, and goals. It starts with the assessment of internal environment of the organization, such as procedures, structures, policies, strengths and weaknesses, and external environment, such as opportunities and threats. Individual level. Training needs analysis at individual level focuses on each and every individual in the organization. At this level, the organization checks whether an employee is performing at desired level or the performance is below expectation. If the difference between the expected performance and actual performance comes out to be positive, then certainly there is a need of training. Operational level. Training need analysis at operational level focuses on the work that is being assigned to the employees. The job analysis gathers the information on whether the job is clearly understood by an employee or not. He gathers this information through technical interview, observation, psychological test, questionnaires asking the close-ended as well as open-ended questions, etc. Philosophy of training. The purpose of training and development is to maintain and improve effectiveness of individuals within the organization. This can only have sustained effect if it influences the actions and practices of line managers so as to serve both the self-interest of employees and the needs of the organization. Modeling. Modeling is simply copying someone else's behavior. Passive classroom learning does not leave any room for modeling. Motivation. For learning to take place, intention to learn is important. When the employee is motivated, he pays attention to what is being said, done, and presented. Reinforcement. If behavior is rewarded, it probably will be repeated. Positive reinforcement consists of rewarding desired behaviors. People avoid behaviors that invite criticism and punishment. Feedback. People learn best if reinforcement is given as soon as possible after training. Every employee wants to know what is expected of him and how well he is doing. Spaced practice. Learning takes place easily if the practice sessions are spread over a period of time. New employees learn better if the orientation program is spread over a 2 or 3 day period instead of covering it all in one day. Whole learning. The concept of whole learning suggests that employees learn better if the job information is explained as an entire logical process, so that they can see how the various actions fit together into the big picture. Active practice. Practice makes a man perfect. To be a swimmer, one should plunge into water instead of simply reading about swimming or looking at film of world's best swimmers. Learning is enhanced when trainees are provided opportunities to repeat the task. Applicability of training. Training should be as real as possible so the trainees can successfully transfer the new knowledge to their jobs. The training situations should be set up so that trainees can picture the types of situations they can come across on the job. Environment. Finally, environment plays a major role in training. It is natural that workers who are exposed to training in comfortable environments with adequate, well-spaced rest periods are more likely to learn than employees whose training conditions are less than ideal. Conducting a needs analysis. In selecting which training needs analysis techniques to use, one requires answers to questions such as: what is the nature of the problem being addressed by instruction? How have training needs been identified in the past and with what results? What is the budget for the analysis? How is training needs analysis perceived in the organization? Who is available to help conduct the training needs analysis? What are the time frames for completing the exercise? What will be the measure of a successful training needs analysis report? Advantages and disadvantages of needs assessment methods. An assessment process that serves as a diagnostic tool for determining what training needs to take place. This survey gathers data to determine what training needs to be developed to help individuals and the organization accomplish their goals and objectives. This is an assessment that looks at employee and organizational knowledge, skills, and abilities to identify any gaps or areas of need. What needs can be met by training and development? If there is indication of performance deficiency, the next step is to determine what needs can be met by training and development. If problems relate to employee relations, such as poor morale, lack of motivation, or inability to learn, training is not a solution. Proposing solutions. After determining that training is a potential solution, HR professionals will need to closely examine if formal training is the best way to meet the need. One might find that practice or feedback is all that is needed. Did you know? In addition to the basic training required for a trade, occupation, or profession, observers of the labor market recognize, as of 2008, the need to continue training. Training needs assessment is an ongoing process of gathering data to determine what training needs exist so training can be developed to help the organization accomplish its objectives. Knowledge. Here the trainee learns about a set of rules and regulations about the job, the staff, and the products or services offered by the company. The aim is to make the new employee fully aware of what goes inside and outside the company. Technical skills. The employee is taught a specific skill, example, operating a machine and handling a computer, so that he can acquire that skill and contribute meaningfully. Social skills. The employee is made to learn about him and other, develop a right mental attitude towards the job, colleagues, and the company. The principal focus is on teaching the employee how to be a team member and get ahead. Techniques. This involves the application of knowledge and skills to various on-the-job situations. In addition to improving the skills and knowledge of employees, training aims at clouding employee attitudes. Identifying training objectives. Training objective is one of the most important parts of training program, while some people think of training objective as a waste of valuable time. Training objectives are of great significance from a number of stakeholder perspectives. Trainer, trainee, designer, evaluator.
Welcome to this presentation on developing active training objectives. So the question we really want to address as we put together our objectives is, what do you want your participants to value, understand, or do? As you think of this idea about the objectives of the training program, these really are the pillars of your program. Don't consider them like straitjackets, like this is it and that's the only thing, but they're actually what hold up your training program. They are the objectives or outcomes you're looking for your participants to come away with, to have a competency or outcomes as a result of being in your program. So the single best reason you need to work hard on developing training objectives is that your objectives will drive your training design. We will now look at how we will go about setting learning goals and think of this as the ABCs, just a little bit of a mnemonic device: effective learning, behavioral learning, and cognitive learning. These three major types of learning, easy to remember as the ABCs of learning goals. Effective learning includes the fostering of attitudes, feelings, and preferences. Behavioral learning includes the development of competence and actual performance of procedures, operations, methods, and techniques. Whereas cognitive learning, that is more including the acquisition of information and concepts related to course content. It is more of the knowledge base, not so much as the application base as the behavioral training or behavioral learning outcomes might be. So, as we focus on learning goals, there are cognitive goals, behavioral goals, and effective goals. Cognitive goals, the priority here is where there is a lack of knowledge. This is often as a don't know situation. It is more of giving the information, the knowledge that we talked about on the last slide. So really that is the goal, is more of a beginning, a basic goal. The behavioral goals are the priority when there is a lack of a skill for your training. In this area, this is referred to as a can't do situation. So you want to provide people in your program with the skills that they need, the hands-on, that they can do something when they leave. The effective goals are the priority when there's a lack of a desire or fear about using new knowledge or skills. This is often referred to as the won't do situation. Here you're trying to move people's outlook and that they don't have confidence to be a graduate or have been through your training program, that they have the skills that they need to accomplish the task, as before they have doubt or fear and things in that nature about not being able to do it. Whereas the cognitive goals area, it's more of just knowing the situation, so you'll focus on the priority. It's just mainly the knowledge that is missing. You will give your trainees the knowledge that they need so they can have the confidence to go back in and focus on that based off of the cognitive goal, so that you have accomplished what you need to. So we have cognitive goals. Behavioral goals referring to the lack of a skill and giving them the skill to do a certain performance or job because they didn't have the skill ahead of time. And then of course effective, again just restating, building confidence in your trainees. One thing that I think is really important once you have the learning goals set is if you are going with a cognitive, effective, or behavioral goal, as we talked on the last slide, when you make your objectives, make sure that when you select these, that you make them specific and then they are necessary for the outcome you are going for. The problem happens sometime in training is in classes that there are too many objectives crammed into a course or program. Avoid this. Be careful to distinguish between objectives that are nice to obtain and those that are necessary. the more specific that you can be on your training objectives, whether in the cognitive, if it is a course, for example, or if you're doing a skills-based training for like workforce training or something of that nature, where you are giving someone a skill set to do a job, whether they're a hairstylist or a technician, a beautician, a cosmetology school, nursing, things of that nature. Depending on what type of goal it is, behavioral, affective, or cognitive, make those specific, and then those will help you become focused on what are the necessary goals and objectives of your program. Finally, I think the selection of training objectives also are going to be influenced on one's understanding of adult learning needs. For example, adult learners tend to be less thrilled by survey courses, the big overview courses. They prefer single concept or single theory type courses. Adults also want to see the immediate value of the skills and knowledge that they are taught. They require information on the significance and application of the training topic, especially depending on what age group is, as we talk about some of the other courses and the intergenerational courses. The boomers want to see the application of this and know why it's significant. Adult learners also like to build upon their prior experience, so they expect the opportunity to be able to relate to what you are teaching them to what they already know about the situation. As you see here by Knowles, that is really critical. The better you can assess adult learners' needs and what they're looking for coming in and their understanding can really help you a long way in being successful as you build your training objectives.
Process of conducting needs assessment. A needs assessment is the process of collecting information about an expressed or implied organizational need that could be met by conducting training. The need can be a desire to improve current performance or to correct decency is a performance that does not meet the current standard. Step 1. Perform a gap analysis. The first step is to check the actual performance of organizations and people against existing standards or to set new standards. Step 2. Identify priorities and importance. The first step should have produced a large list of needs for training and development, career development, organization development, and/or other interventions. Now one must examine these in view of their importance to their organizational goals, realities, and constraints. Step 3. Identify causes of performance problems and/or opportunities. Now that one has prioritized and focused on critical organizational and personal needs, one will next identify specific problem areas and opportunities in the organization. One must know what the performance requirements are if appropriate solutions are to be applied. Step 4. Identify possible solutions and growth opportunities. If people are doing their jobs effectively, perhaps one should leave well enough alone. However, some training and/or other interventions might be called for if sufficient importance is attached to moving people and their performance into new directions. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Individual assessment analyzes how well an individual employee is doing a job and determines the individual's capacity to do new or different work. Occupational assessment identifies how and which occupational discrepancies or gaps exist, potentially introduced by new direction of an agency. It also examines new ways to do work that can eliminate the discrepancies or gaps. Planning and evaluation are key elements in the effective delivery of training that will satisfy business or operational needs within an organization. Training need analysis at operational level focuses on the work that is being assigned to the employees. The job analysis gathers the information on whether the job is clearly understood by an employee or not. The purpose of training and development is to maintain and improve effectiveness of individuals within the organization.